Hello ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond. My name is Taylor and welcome to the art table for June 2024, this time featuring the ever-talented character artist Rampawns, or Ram as I will be referring to them. Now, Ram is a commissioned artist who works with a series of different styles, but primarily seems to focus on fantasy and sci-fi characters or situations that you would probably find in many role-playing video games or tabletop games. As he is a commissioned artist, I will leave links to his commission pages, social media, and his coffee in the description down below. Please feel free to check them out. So to get the usual disclaimer out of the way, I do not take any sort of kickback, promotion, discount, commission, payment, or anything of the sort in relation to these videos. I do this purely for the love of the artwork. If I have had a commission done by the artist, I will let you know. If I do not mention it, then that means I have not had a commission done by them. All commission prices, timing, everything like that is set by the artist. Any deals you make are between you and them. I am in no way involved, cannot get you a discount, cannot get anything sped up, and cannot get you in contact with them. That is purely up to you. They have every right to refuse, every right to set the time frame they feel is appropriate, and the price they feel is appropriate. Please do not share their artwork without their permission. I have written permission from every artist that I feature here on the channel, and please do not share my video without the appropriate watermarks and the appropriate disclaimer, because I am sharing someone else's work with their permission for me to share it, not for you. With all that being said, let's get into the video. Now, I picked this first piece for two reasons. The first is that it really feels the most ominous. It demonstrates a skill that I've not seen a lot of people talk about, and that's the ability to work with primarily black images to create menacing silhouettes. The environment itself looks terrifying, which, when coupled with the horrifying visage of this giant creature, doesn't help the feeling of dread that I, and the characters depicted, must be facing right now. This one also stood out to me for some other reasons, the first being that this feels like a game of D&D, where the ragtag party who's been felling monsters left and right the whole campaign finally runs into an unstoppable force of nature they have only heard about in taverns using hushed whispers. A force so large and powerful that for the first time, they would think, we may not leave this encounter alive. Thinking of their friends and families, other than the rogue, of course, his parents are obviously dead and they have some horribly dark, tragic backstory, who would be left behind to mourn their loss. They believed that if they did not stop this monster now, there would be no hope for the world after their fall. So they either die here or watch the world burn and die later. They're painting a bleak but heroic picture as they stand stalwart in the face of death, but they will not relent and have resolved to die as heroes rather than cowards. The other major component that caught my attention was the monster itself, which honestly has no recognizable facial features. It has what might be an eye, which is off-center and appears to be a brain, but I can't determine what they were going for exactly, or what, it is exactly. This feeling of staring into the unknown, the undescribable, all while it stares back at you, is making my skin crawl just a little bit, and I think it's a great use of black shapes, which give you an idea of something, but don't completely fit into anything that already exists. It is a fantastic use of negative space to give the viewer a sense of unease and foreboding that this creature will bring a terrible fate. The soft lines in the background also help in crafting that sense of scale and almost etherealness, that it's somehow not all physical. I do believe this story ends with the party's death, but also a change in the monster. It doesn't destroy the world, but goes into a long slumber to wake again many years later. What do you think? How do you believe their story ends? So the pieces that I've selected following this one are meant to help me kind of paint a story and tell a tale of the party that we see in this image and potentially the next one to go around. So I grabbed this image because it was a really interesting take on what I would assume is a cross between a druid and possibly a warrior or another kind of melee class. Seeing the fungal growths coming over her blade's hilt, and even the skull she wears around her waist, coupled with the roots growing around her head, all give the idea that she is one with the earth. The essence of maybe not decay, but death itself. I am unsure if her skin tone, is indicative of her race, or if it's because she is meant to kind of be covered in dirt from being buried, or something of the like. I have a growing suspicion that she is a corpse brought back to life through some sort of magic, probably necromancy, and maybe she's being controlled by the fungus from her sword who wanted a worthy host. Speaking of the sword, It's an interesting design because it has jagged edge like a saw blade, but then 3-pronged claws at the end of the hilt. Roots seemingly run along it to feed on the nutrients from the blood of its enemies that make the fungal growths enlarge even more. I also imagine that the skulls she carries with her are done so out of respect. They were likely sworn allies in life, and in death, they continue to stay by her side. Her clothes, for the most part, look like they were fashioned from large leaves, especially the ones wrapped around her arm, and her dress skirt thingy could easily be fashioned from either a leaf or a hide. I love the color scheme too, because it features many dark shades and colors, but all of them can be found within a forest. Even the blade with its dark gray hues doesn't look metallic at all. It appears so natural. I imagine this character doesn't speak. When she opens her mouth, all that comes out is the sound of the wind, and the rest of the party interprets it as to what she meant to say. She feels like a guardian of the forest, crafted using the corpses of those who have died and decayed within its soil, pieced together to form a humanoid creature and fight the ever-looming threats that lurk just beyond. I picture her along with the other characters I'm going to feature as ones taking on, again, this monster, creature, whatever you want to call it from the first image. And as she falls, her body returns to the earth from whence it came, to be reborn anew when the time arises and when she is needed again. So I grabbed this one, partly because it fits with the theme of the previous character, and also because Ram has made great use of flower petals in this image. Now this is apparently Lucy, the Bell Lily Witch, who is a commission Ram received, and I love the different uses of the lily petals, from the staff, to the dress, to the tip of her hat. I also really appreciate the gentle green because it makes her look rather innocent and non-threatening. Then you look at her eyes, which overflow with discontent and judgment. I can imagine the flowers dangling from the staff would act almost like a bell. They would sway when she was casting magic, and then as they clanged together, the spell would activate. I also appreciate the small green spores that litter the background, because they add to that atmosphere that gives her this feeling of plague and pestilence, but also, of more natural things, of pollination. The old expression, kill them with kindness, certainly comes to mind. In this case, the staff would probably be named Kindness. I also wonder about the seemingly mystical black cat being held and played with by some seemingly spectral arms. I'm unsure if they're coming from the witch or from the cat itself, and that terrifies me because those simple blue eyes would certainly haunt my dreams. I have a feeling that she is meant to be a living seal for the real powers that the cat holds. When she falls in battle with the monster, the seal will be undone and the world will be changed in a way no one can anticipate for centuries to come. Her body will turn into a field of bell lilies, covering the corpses of her fallen comrades, and serve as a reminder to all that their spirits are at rest in that valley. All in all, a super well done piece with some great shading and transitions from the dress to the staff, down to the grass she's walking on, and how they reflect against her feet. So this next piece I chose for a couple of reasons, one of which being that, it relates to the previous pieces that we've seen, very nature heavy, very druid heavy, but it also relates to the image I'm going to show you after this one, which was my first introduction to Ram's work. But for now, I will focus on this warforged Spores druid, which is a super interesting idea. On the surface, a warforged, in my mind, is something made of magic and metal, not something that I would associate or expect to find in a natural setting, and something that I would associate with spores and infection. Now, according to D&D lore, warforged can be made out of almost anything, whether that be, metal, stone, wood, but it does obviously require some magic in there, so it's completely lore accurate, and it's just my assumptions that are being challenged here. Now, this one definitely appears to be made more of stone than steel, and has a much more natural feel, and again creates that idea of a guardian or warrior figure for the forest, for maybe swamps in this case. It feels like nature wanted its warriors to fight and travel the world to save other forests, other natural environments from being tarnished and tainted. I am starting to think that the creature depicted in the first image is the embodiment of decay and rot. While a natural part of life, it has gone too far and needs to be stopped and quelled before the entire world is engulfed by it. This warforged was created in an effort to stop it one day. But before that could happen, they set out to explore the world and learn how to live. They are a sentient being after all. I believe that they traveled the world, sleeping in natural environments, whether that be caves, forests, mountains, swamps, or anything else. During this time, she met others of both good and evil intentions, but dealt with them using all the same neutrality, except for a small few who she considered close to her. In her final moments of the battle, there are two thoughts invading her mind as they fall to the cold, unforgiving earth. One being how they have failed in their mission to stop the decay, and the other being of whom they had come to love during their time in existence, and how they would react when the news reached them. As this thought comes to the foremost of her mind, her eyes close and everything disappears. So the next two images are related to one another, and as I mentioned, were the first images that I saw of Ram's work that I encountered on Facebook. I didn't have context for what was happening, and I really didn't need it. I saw this face bearing so much raw emotion, seemingly uttering the words, "To be loved is to be challenged, changed, and hurt. And I love you with all my heart." As tears streamed down her face, it was this very powerful scene that created the idea in my mind that she had fallen in love with someone who had to confront a great betrayal of some sort. It feels like she's trying to stop someone at the castle wall and understands that she may have to kill that person in order to stop them. I'm not sure what has transpired, but this piece held so much emotion and strength behind it. The lighting and silhouettes that the sunset creates are gorgeous and very well used. It is then accentuated with the colors of her tears as they run down her face. The clouds are super well drawn and create a diverse background, reflecting all of the different colors of the sunset, which adds a lot of depth and variety to the image. These two pictures are honestly my favorite of Ram's works, and are honestly the main drivers behind this video. They're both visually and emotionally powerful and speak to the viewer on multiple levels. It also shows something that is really true with love itself. It's never just the happiness and freedom that you feel with someone else. Love is a wider range of emotions and shared experiences that you need to go through together. That means changing as an individual, but also as a pair. Challenging one another to be better than you are alone, and better than you were before the relationship began. You cannot love someone without opening your heart to the possibility they may hurt you one day. If you cannot take this risk, then you cannot truly love them. But let's move on to something you can love. So we are at the halfway point of the video. Thank you all for sticking around this far. That when Ram is open for commission, he will accept them through the pages I have linked down below. He also has a Ko-fi account, so you can support him there with either a one-time or regular donations, and be sure to check them out if anything today has caught your eye, or if you're interested in commissioning him for work. If this hasn't convinced you yet, I'm hoping the next batch of pictures will. I gravitated towards this pair because they struck me as an engineering duo who craft some insane creations that do even more insane things. They each have a very mischievous smile, which makes me think they're looking at someone who's trying their latest invention and wondering when it'll explode. Another aspect of this piece that I really enjoyed was the color choices. I quite like green, and purple is by far my favorite color, so they stood out from some of the other pieces purely on their visual differences. Of course, it doesn't hurt they were sketches that show all of the small lines and details that artists have to consider when making their art. They have to plan out where every shadow will fall, where the light source will be, and of course, what sorts of textures they want to bring to life. I wasn't able to find a quote completed version of this piece at the time of recording, and I'm okay with that. Not everything has to be fully rendered with background, full colors, and the kitchen sink. Even if Ram meant to do more, I believe this image is perfectly fine as is, and has its own unique qualities as a sketch that it might lose during the render. You will notice a distinct change between this party and the last one. The previous one was much more, nature focused, featuring almost exclusively druids, whereas this party is much more mechanically focused. They struck me as the ones that take up the mantle of heroes many ages after the first party fell, and are preparing to take on the challenge of the decay. This time though, they come from a much more technological society, where machinery rules and nature has been largely taken over, much as the real world is today. So this gunner sketch was also important because it is not only Ram's first official commission, but it also shows the many different directions that art can take. You will see the many different ideas that the artist and the customer had before settling on the final version. I wanted to show all the different communications between the customer and artists because it is never a one and done. This process is one that will likely take weeks and it means you are going over many different variations in the art to find the perfect balance to bring your vision to life. It is really important when it comes to works like this that you have lots of smaller details, such as those on the face of the little robot dog thing, and of course on their weapon. You can see all the different things that Ram had to consider when making this piece. All the different moving parts, different positions and uses for the accessories, what facial expressions they should have, and of course what colors needed to be there for the render. Again, another technically well done piece with clean line work, great shading, and the small details really came out well. And I do appreciate the backstory. This young woman is looking for a tomb of treasures left behind by her mother. In pursuit of this treasure though, I believe she will discover an ancient threat to all of existence, and in doing so, find a new purpose to use her mother's treasure and team up with a party to stop the decay. So this one stood out to me because they felt connected in more ways than one. They seem to not only be a pair on the battlefield who care for one another, but also with the two giant mechanical hands, I imagine that they each have control over one of them. They have to work as a pair, or their connection with both the hands and themselves will begin to fall apart. Then they too shall fall on the battlefield. I believe the one in red is by far the more reckless one, and the one in purple is, the more calm and collected one, but at the same time, red encourages and warms purple's heart to feel something and not turn her back on the rest of the world. Yeah, I get that's a cliche, but it works well when used in the right situation and can be very impactful. The giant hands strike me as an artifact from an ancient race that they discovered, and neither could handle both hands alone, so they each took one of them. That way the hands can be connected through their masters, and the two young warriors are now bound even closer together through their shared connection of the artifacts, and have worked for many years to ensure they can fight in a unique way only possible for them. From a technical level, this one demonstrates an eye for the small details, like the glass dome around the eyes on the hands, and how the shadows change when passing over the maroon parts of those hands. The small details on the medical case, the bandage, and even the feet, not that I look at those very closely, even when the shading and small details on the armor are super well done and add a lot to the image overall. Now, I included this Paladin because, as I'm sure you're well aware by this point, I am a sucker for Paladins, and to see them represented is always welcome. Now, this is a commission, so I don't know a lot of things about this image, such as, what gods or deities that she would pray to, and I'm not well enough versed in all the different ways a paladin can come to be, so I won't speculate on that, but do let me know what you think in the comments down below. They have clearly been knighted and belong to a kingdom with a rose for a crest, so that does narrow it down somewhat if we're talking real-world inspirations, but not enough for me to speculate, unfortunately. From a technical level, I really like the different feel of this picture because it has a strong feeling of almost grittiness compared to all of the other images I've shown. They don't have the same softness, but none of that has to do with the line work or even the color scheme. It has a seeming shadow over the whole thing that gets darker as it goes down, and I believe a lot of that also has to do with the texture that Ram has placed on both the armor and even the hair, which makes it feel a little different. Especially with the lower half of the image being, so much darker, and the upper half adding that sensation that the image is heavier. Between the tower shield and the massively long handle, for a seemingly small, hammer, I have a feeling that she likes things that hit hard and can withstand massive impact. I feel like if she does fall with this party, she will be the last to do so because she'll take hit after hit after hit and keep standing. So I selected this final piece because it feels like round 3. The third party that will be going on a grand adventure, experiencing the world, growing as both a party and as individuals, all culminating in one final clash with the embodiment of decay. I dare not speak the fate of this party as I don't know, and I believe that it is in their hands as to what fate befalls them. I wonder though, what do you think will happen to them? Let me know in the comments if they succeed or if they fail, and if so, how? What happens afterwards? Now, I really like this one a lot because of all the variety the characters have, and the different details they have to make them feel, separate. It also seemed like the happiest one that I featured in the video. I have another theory that they were all playing, one or both of these parties that while they met in a local library, not even a tavern, and they've been gifted with this mimic as a threat from what will become the big bad of their adventure. Now, admittedly, this one is maybe more simpler than the others and depicts, again, a really interesting, diverse cast of characters, but it felt like a great way to end things because it feels like a happy ending. At the same time, an ominous beginning to a new adventure full of laugh, love, and possibly murder. Probably lots of murder. Well, thank you, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, for being here and engaging with Ram's works. I have not personally had a commission from him yet, so I can't speak as to the process, but if you are interested, please contact him using the links down below. You know what I was saying in relation to that, so I won't repeat myself. Thank you to Ram for letting me showcase your work, and as always, if there's any artist who you would like me to feature, please let me know and I will reach out to them. But beyond that, have a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.